Hey everybody, welcome to XZ Chat. I'm Serge.
I'm Rob.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen X.
And today we actually have an update on the Titan Submersible tragedy, what happened, like the aftermath, essentially. This was actually posted by NBC News 10 hours ago. Of course, right now, that's when we're recording the video. It'll probably come out later this week on our channel of our reaction to this, or rather our discussion. And so this came out 10 hours ago. And
this is hot off the press.
Hot off the press. There's actually the first photos released of the pieces of the Titan being recovered from the seafloor.
Wow, they found them and were able to recover.
Yeah, so they're actually pulling pieces out of the ocean.
Okay.
So I was surprised how quickly they were able to accomplish this because it was so far down. I didn't think they'd be able to. But
2.5 miles.
Yeah, it's crazy far down in that pressure. They actually used. So I believe they used the same. I don't know what it's called, like the same thing that they sent down there, like the same, let's say, drone. I'll just use the word drone. It might not be. The same
submarine cameras or submersive cameras.
Right. The same one that they sent down there to like look for the parts was the one that's bringing them back up, is what I heard.
Oh, okay. So it's a pretty strong piece of machinery. I mean, it can actually bring back. Well, they're probably small pieces.
We will see.
Okay.
Here's the first photos released. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Breaking news: more than a week after the Titan Submersible imploded, killing all 5 on board crews in Canada
that's a
have
big
recovered
piece.
pieces of the wreckage and brought them to shore. Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Ron Allen. Ron, walk us through what we're seeing in these newly released photos and how were crews able to actually recover this debris?
Yeah, there's been a crew out on a salvage ship out there in the North Atlantic for the last 10 days or so using an underwater robotic device, which is the device that was used to find the wreckage in the first place.
Yep, same device.
They've been able to lift it from the bottom of the Atlantic, some 12 to 13,000 feet deep on the bottom, near the wreckage of the Titanic, which is, again, 2.5 miles down or so. And they've brought some of this to the surface. It appears to be pretty big chunks. It's wrapped in tarps and other
I'm really
material.
surprised how big those chunks are.
Which pieces of the
I was just going to comment on that. I'm surprised at how big they are. With the implosion at that type of pressure, assuming it was near the bottom. I'm not sure.
Well, no. It was actually less than 2 hours in, so like an hour something. An hour something into the voyage.
Okay, so depending on the rate of descent, they were probably less than a mile down, maybe 3/4 of a mile, so the pressure wouldn't be as great.
Extreme.
Okay,
right.
but that makes sense on why these are so big.
Right.
It's not as if it imploded.
Yeah, but
at the bottom.
It makes it a little bit more scary as well. I've seen some discussions, and people are speculating that maybe the death wasn't as instantaneous as people were led to believe. Oh. Because from the animation that we saw, for example, I showed you that animation. Remember of it going down and imploding.
Yep.
People are that animation makes everything look at like it exploded into like smithereens, like imploded into smithereens, I should say.
Right.
And so there's really tiny pieces, but these chunks are significant to the point where it's almost as if maybe the deaths weren't as fast as people presume. Now, of course, there's no confirmation either way. We won't know for sure until there's further investigation done to see if maybe they can get some more information out of what the heck happened. Maybe they can get some. What was that word?
The forensics
of like from the wreckage itself. So it's pretty crazy to see all this.
Wow.
Titan craft it is. Some of it appears to be part of the nose cone or the back cone. And again, they're fairly significant sized chunks, which is a bit surprising because remember there was what was described as a catastrophic implosion about an hour and 45 minutes into its voyage, its journey down into the depths of the Atlantic last week, killing 5 people aboard. But it's somewhat remarkable. They've been able to pull this wreckage up. The operation out there is over, we understand, and now this will all be turned over to investigators who are trying to determine what caused this to happen.
Ron, walk us through what we know about how investigators will approach determining what happened here.
It appears the U.S. Coast Guard is going to take the lead on this. Remember, it happened in international waters, but an area where the U.S. was patrolling and doing search and rescue operations. The Canadians are also involved in this. Remember, it's a multinational operation. The victims were from several different countries, and again, this was in international waters. The focus is on the craft itself. Remember, there were warnings and there were concerns raised about its construction, about the material, that it's made out of carbon fiber. The pilot of the ship, the CEO of the company, Stockton Rush, had been warned and criticized by people in the maritime industry who suggested that this was not the way to do this kind of voyage, even though he had done this about 12 times. This was the 13th.
Wow.
So he was an absolute maverick.
Right, and this was the 13th time they said. Was it? Was he? We cut him off, but was he saying this 13th time it got sent down there?
Let's rewind that and see.
13th journey down to the
13th.
Titanic.
So this was the 13th journey down to the Titanic. So this one submersible.
Wow.
So and every single time it's weakening. It's the pressure is slowly weighing on it. And it seems like they weren't cautious at all. They were just threw all of the critique that they're receiving to the wayside.
For sure.
And there's actually some other stories that are coming out regarding that.
Well, it's remarkable. And those of you, if you haven't seen our first reaction to this, listen to it. It's remarkable how this whole unit was completely unsafe. It was unfortunately, it was a disaster waiting to happen. And I think back in 2017, the inspector,
2018, so 5 years prior to what happened.
He predicted this and said, I think he quoted hyperbole. He said, "You are inches away from death,
right,
in this contraption."
Yeah, in the lawsuit, he even specified that this is like inches away from it being a catastrophic implosion, from this resulting in a catastrophic implosion, which would result in the deaths of all the victims on board. Yeah. And I'm surprised how that kind of lawsuit can be filed, and then 5 years later, it's still being sent down there.
Full operations,
operations, and all warnings are completely ignored. Yeah. So I'm
13 dives.
13 dives. Yeah, I find it really remarkable. Surprising. I'm wondering for 13th time going down there. So how many were there scheduled? I wonder, because I know there were some trips that were completely called off because of weather conditions.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think we saw that. They actually were going to do that with this team, right? And the waves were too violent, too strong or something. Yeah. The weather conditions prevented them from their first launch, the original launch.
I don't know if it was the first launch, but I mentioned to Rob there was someone else who actually almost went down with it, but then it got canceled. That wasn't the first dive, though, that what I'm referring to.
Oh, gotcha.
It was actually a dive right before the catastrophic dive. So that person, the bad weather conditions or the failure with the submersible actually saved their life because they didn't end up going.
Can you imagine what they're thinking right now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the thoughts going through that person's head and their family. Wow.
Yeah. It's the kind of stories that make you never want to try anything like it again.
Yeah. Well, this was crazy.
Yeah.
12 times. This was the 13th journey down to the Titanic. But a lot of focus on the design, the materials, and whether, in fact, this should have even happened. Again, the U.S. Coast Guard taking the lead, looking even also at whether there should be any criminal actions taken as a result of all this. Allison?
Ron Allen, thank you for that.
I'm curious to know who those criminal actions will be levied against because, of course, the CEO is no more.
Yeah, I think other people who are on the board, if a board exists,
right,
other owners, co-owners, I would not want to be a part of that company.
Yeah,
right now. Well, even from its inception, like you and I were talking about yesterday, Serge, safety is everything. Yeah, we can take risks, calculated risks, but you never take risks with safety, especially when it pertains to other people's lives and their well-being ever.
Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not misremembering, he actually quoted his reasoning was he wants to be remembered as an inventor. And a quote from some general that he mentioned,
MacArthur, I think.
MacArthur, is that you're remembered for the rules you break. And the thing is, MacArthur, his quote makes a lot of sense because in the military, you need to come up with unconventional strategies to outsmart your opponent. Sure. Warfare is all about unconventional tactics in order to surprise your enemy and get the jump on them and to be successful and victorious in battle on the battlefield. But when you can't take that same line of logic and apply it to completely ignore safety regulations and restrictions. That's not how it works.
Yeah, especially when you are at the mercy of the elements. In this case, the ocean and the great pressure as you continue to descend deeper into the depths of the Atlantic. Yeah. Those are environmental elements that don't change.
Yeah, it's one of the most.
You can't bend the rules.
It's one of the most dangerous places to be on our planet. if not the most. I would say I would actually argue it is the most dangerous place to be. We know less about our oceans than we know about space.
I was just going to say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, as well as, it's easier to travel and explore outer space than it is not inner space, but at least the depths of our
oceans. Yeah,
we don't have the technology and the ability to go and explore the depths of our oceans, and yet we can send. The plan is let's put someone on the planet of Mars. We'll do that before we explore the greatest depths of our oceans.
Yeah, I think there's a study that said like only 5% of our oceans are explored. So like a very tiny percentage. It's interesting because with the bottom of our oceans, the further down you go, the pressure increases like massively, and because it's like unfathomable just how much pressure is being put on you. Versus in space, it's more like a vacuum, so you don't have that pressure closing in around you.
That's right.
If you were to an astronaut suit that can easily support you in space, if you were to take it down to the bottom of the oceans, it'd be crushed in less than a millisecond.
Like a tin can.
So, it's a whole nother thing. Really curious to see how the aftermath will continue to unfold regarding this, because, like I said, it is crazy that they were able to operate without being certified and put people's lives in danger, which resulted in this. So, and because of how much publicity this event is receiving, like it's being talked about all over the world. I'm hearing people at work talk about it, friends talk about it, family members talk about it. Everybody's talking about this. And it's also kind of part of that cultural phenomenon where the Titanic is such a big cultural icon in terms of its history. So I think that because of all of the publicity this story is getting and all the visibility, that there's going to be some changes in terms of regulation.
Absolutely, yeah. Regulators will go in and start looking at any submersibles and private industry with those, much like they do with cars and vehicles.
Exactly. And actually, there's another even more recent video that was released from NBC News that we're going to be jumping into next. Can you guess what that one is?
It's probably a news release on NBC Live. No, I don't know.
Yeah. So the other update that was released was that there's actually human remains.
Oh, wow.
In the wreckage. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. I'm shocked that there would be human remains.
For those of you who are worried, don't worry. There's no gore content. They don't actually show it. I made sure to pre-screen to make sure. So for those of you who scream, it will not show.
Some breaking news that is coming into us in just the last couple of minutes here, because we are hearing from the Coast Guard in an official statement saying they have recovered what they describe as human remains from that Titan mini-sub wreckage.
My gosh.
Medical experts are set to conduct an analysis in the next few days. It comes as we're getting the first look at some of the pieces from that catastrophic implosion. Look at this. You can see it here. Pieces of steel, chunks of metal, what looks like electrical wires being lifted off the ship at a Canadian Coast Guard pier up in St. John's. These pieces were found by an ROV, a remote-operated vehicle. It's been on the ocean floor looking for any wreckage like this. Investigators hope this will provide some clues as to what happened before this sub imploded, killing, of course, all 5 people who were on board. Ron Allen is joining us now. Ron, what else are we hearing from the Coast Guard tonight?
Well, it's surprising that they're saying that there are these presumed human remains that were found along with the other debris there on the ocean floor back last week.
I just have to pause this to point out one thing. This looks like the front of the ship, and where that white hole is in the center, looks like that's where the lookout window was.
Yep, the porthole. And actually, I saw a separate video that was part of an article where they showed all the pieces labeled, and they actually labeled the specific piece and said that it was that the porthole window was missing.
Yeah, it just got blown out.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that is maybe that this is the potential cause of the implosion, is that the glass was compromised. It was not able to withstand the pressure.
Sure.
Which, if that one other person if that one other source is correct in the sense that it was not rated for the depth that it went down, then it's a very obvious flaw that led to what happened. But of course, there's other flaws involved in it as well, because this was just a really bad design.
Horrible. And just as a reminder, I think you discovered this last night, that it was rated at a depth of no greater than 1,300 meters.
That's what the source said. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but according to them, it was 1,300 meters, and they're diving to around 4,000 meters. I'm assuming that's rounded, because I think Titanic is slightly less. So,
but here's what's interesting: If the implosion occurred about an hour and 45 minutes into the descent, that would be at just about 1,300 meters. It'd be just about at that level.
In general, I think since it went on so many successful dives prior to this, I think in general was the weakening of the overall structure.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
When this was all happening, they described this catastrophic implosion as so violent at such depths that it was unlikely that there would be anything recovered, let alone any sign of human remains of the 5 who perished in this accident. So that's really startling that they have announced this just a few moments ago. So that, along with the other debris.
Yeah, and in general, I think this is starting to lead into some distrust of what's being told to everyone, because at first they told everyone that, oh, we're still looking for them, there's a very high chance that they're still alive, they're just running out of oxygen. But it turns out that from day one they picked up what was very likely proof of the sub having imploded
On day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now there's also this where they said it was going to be, it was such a catastrophic implosion that there's going to be very little that's going to be able to be recovered. Now we're seeing these huge chunks recovered, and not only chunk, but apparently human remains as well. Yeah. It's interesting that they say presumed human remains. I'm confused on that wording. Is it just like the remains are so unrecognizable that they're not able to say it directly, or?
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here that's been pulled up by the salvage company is headed to investigators as they try to figure out what caused this to happen. As you know, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of criticism of the company, OceanGate, the CEO,
Also, one thing I'm curious about is why are they covering these with tarps? You notice that? They're like covering some of the pieces with these tarps, and I wonder what it is, just to try and like keep everything together, but at the same time the tarp isn't covering the bottom, so parts could easily fall out.
Yeah.
Stockton Rush, the pilot who also died on this voyage on the submersible, because this craft had not been independently certified, safety certified by any of the maritime agencies that do that sort of thing. It wasn't required to, as it was operating out in international waters. But there was some criticism from within and outside of the company suggesting that it wasn't, that the vessel shouldn't be operating at those depths, some 2.5 miles down, to see the Titanic wreckage with passengers aboard, that it wasn't safe. And then we had this catastrophic accident last week. So more for the investigators to look at. The U.S. Coast Guard is leading the investigation. They've convened what's called a Marine Board of Investigation, which is the highest level of investigation that the Coast Guard can organize. It's a multinational effort. The Canadians, the French, the British are all involved in this because they had nationals aboard the submersible, or because they are involved in this rescue and search and recovery operation.
Yeah, it's really a shame what happened to these people. It's just a constant reminder of like negligence that this even occurred. Once again, to speak to like how big these chunks are that recovered. I'm really surprised at the back here of the sub. Look how intact everything looks. You can see the wires. You can see the different parts. It doesn't seem like it got all that damaged at all. I mean, obviously the covers were blown off, but
it looks like it just kind of fell apart versus having an implosion where it would be ripped into shreds, almost into smaller pieces, but just kind of broke apart, really.
Yeah.
And as such, I think you mentioned people are afraid that the passengers inside may in fact did suffer. It was an instantaneous death.
Yeah, but that's just speculation. We don't know at this point whether it was instantaneous or whether it was prolonged. Either way, definitely not a situation anyone would ever want to find themselves in.
I'd imagine with that pressure, though, it would be very close to instantaneous, because one's insides would be imploded as well.
As it evolved into over the past number of days. The salvage company says that its operations out there to bring back more debris have ended, so they apparently have what they're going to have, and they're going to try and start piecing this together to see what happened. It's not just about the cause. They're trying to determine if there should be more regulations regarding these submersibles, which are largely unregulated, particularly when they operate so far out in international waters. And again, a lot of criticism of the company, OceanGate, the CEO, the pilot, the material that this craft was made out of, which is not typical. It was carbon fiber, not steel and titanium. So again, a lot of questions, and this big development today that there are, in fact, apparently apparently human remains that have been recovered as well. Very unlikely.
Ron Allen, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed. As you say, that's all coming into us late tonight. Appreciate it.
Wow.
Thanks for watching.
Oh boy, that's crazy.
Yeah.
My heart really feels for the families,
Especially the 19-year-old who didn't even want to go.
Just going to mention that the 19-year-old son who was afraid of going and only did it to please his dad for Father's Day.
Yeah. So you have bonding time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think his aunt was the one who spoke up about how the son felt.
I
Right?
believe, I believe either the aunt or the mother, because the mother also spoke regarding this. So.
Thanks for finding this again and inviting me into the story because I mentioned to Serge yesterday I was on a business trip, and so I was really out of touch with this. And after learning so much last night, it was appalling and saddening. I mean, you know, this tragedy here.
Yeah, and it gets crazier and crazier because as more and more information is being revealed about what happened, it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy that this even occurred. Pure negligence, pure arrogance as well. I think Stockton, he was so he had a dream and he was so eager to achieve it that he just ignored all the warning signs.
For sure.
He couldn't even see all these problems that should be obvious, should be very straightforward.
Well, and they were. He should have seen them, and had he not, he was even told them. Others had come in and told him, this is not safe, this was not built right or correctly. So even in his own confirmation bias to do what he wanted to do and pursue his dream, he had other advisors outside telling him, you need to do this differently, and he didn't listen. So it was negligence with intent.
With that being said, we hope you guys found this informative. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon, and stay up to date on future videos.
And leave in the comment section some of your thoughts with everything going on here and some of the things that we shared with these clips. But with that said, you will see us soon.
All right, guys, take care.
If you try.